well, since we did do Camp Lynch, I'm wondering if we can like tie those two in together I
Yeah.
because I don't think like um as far as how the showing, and I guess we'll just roll into it. The showing of our short Camp Lynch at Gen Con went. It was in the horror comedy block because I think I left it up to the program runner. I was like, you can put it in the horror block or you can put it in the horror comedy, and he did horror comedy, and I think ultimately that is for the best.
Yeah.
I think the reason I said you could do either is because to me I think it does work as either, but I think it does work better going into it. I think it works as a horror movie. I think it works as a comedy, as a horror comedy. But I do think that it works better if you go into it knowing the comedic aspect, because that allowed people to, um, like, so when we did the first screening at, you know, when we first made it for the Fortnite, um, it was, without any context it was just a shorts block, right? There wasn't any theme or like genre. It was just
Correct.
shorts. Some of
Yeah.
them were comedic, some of them were serious, some of them were like dramas.
Right.
Uh, and then you get to ours, and it seems like a serious kind of horror movie. And I think it was like, um, there was more like hesitance to like
Yes.
laugh at it, because I think for a while you're like, what the fuck am I watching, sort of thing. But in the
Yeah. It's
Go ahead.
yeah. Because I've found that I have that reaction with horror movies a lot, where for me personally, I think like a positive sign for a horror movie is laughter,
Sure.
if it's the right type of laughter.
Sure.
Like if it's the type of laughter that's like, "Oh Jesus, this is bad."
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. But laughing at something that's like so outrageous or so over the top or so like horrifically scary or violent, where like your sort of impulse is to just like holy shit, like that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
reaction.
which I do a ton
And I
in horror
think
movies.
yes. So I mean, I think when we saw Barbarian, that initial
Oh,
like
sure, yeah.
when she like just shows up behind, what is it, a Skarsgård, and just
Yeah.
like smashes his head into the wall, that was definitely just like a like whoa kind of like, but it was like a nervous laughter,
Mm-hmm.
like a reaction, not like this is bad. All
Mm-hmm.
that to say, I think that is a good, I think Camp Lynch, our short, is a good example of like we made it with the intention of it being at least somewhat funny,
Mm-hmm.
or like, because like again, like the central thesis of all of these Lynch shorts is like, what if we made an annoying pretentious art house film that makes
Mm-hmm.
no sense, that you can kind of ascribe your own meaning and
Mm-hmm.
plot to. And which is like, that's which is funny because I love David Lynch now. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said I did that not ever seeing anything that he ever made. It was more like a target at film bros who love Lynch, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But all that to say,
Well,
I would place it in horror comedy.
yeah. Well, that uh the brothers from the band Sparks, in their documentary about them, um when they were like little kids, they did the same thing with, I want to say, Bergman movies in like the 60s or
Oh,
whatever. They would shoot on like their Super 8 like home camera, and they like talk about that like when they were kids, like the movies they would make, and like describing it. I was like, that's exactly our like Lynch movies. And I was like, that's fucking cool that they're
yeah.
like the way that they talk about it, of like, they say that like Ingmar Bergman's like, I think it's Bergman, it might be like Truffaut or something, some like
Okay.
French like auteur director, um or like art house director. And they talk about how like their short movies were like kind of making fun of that style, but also that like they love his like films and stuff. I'm like, that's really cool. I'm glad that like the Sparks brothers get it. um
It's like satire from a loving place.
yeah, yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think if it was if it was like meant to be like some sort of takedown
Mm-hmm.
of like, you know, either Lynch fans or pretentious like art film guys, I think it wouldn't work because I hear this point about like conservatives online, getting a little political here, that like conservative comedy doesn't really work because they get themselves so mad that they just stop making jokes because they work themselves up into like being so angry about the topic. Where I think
Right.
if we were to like make some sort of like, you know, a satirical art house film from the point of like, this is actually pointless and stupid, and anyone who watches these kind of movies is like a troglodyte Neanderthal moron, and it's like the satire wouldn't really work because it's coming from this place of malice.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. It's more fun to, I don't know, kind of be in on the joke or be a part of it. I don't know. It's better when you're like, it's not quite the same as like what the guys in like, I don't know where we're going with it, but it's, you know, it makes you look like less of a bully. Nobody likes a bully, I guess, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, if you're kind of part of it and you're like, no, but you know, you can kind of like poke fun at yourself and,
Yeah.
uh,
You
I
said
mean,
it played well though.
yeah, yeah, it did, yeah. It was like right away, right as soon as you get into like, you know, the pan down, and I think there was like some laughs as it's like pans down. He's kind of walking into the little structure and like that
The
music's
music,
playing.
sort of like techno music starts
But
playing.
yeah, but then like
Yeah.
as soon as you know you get the close of like the horse head, and then the music really
Bah, 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 bah.
there was definitely some like what the fuck, like you could hear like a couple of those in the audience. And yeah, no, it played like awesomely, and like got
Oh man.
and inversely to how we usually do at these, we were one of the only ones like with some credits, so we got some like extended applause at the end of ours. So most of the other ones just
Oh
like cut,
hell.
you know, cut to black, next short or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, I always love the credits of Camp Lynch because as it's showing like our names,
mm-hmm.
the audio of like some guy who was driving down the dirt road and was like, "Oh, you guys' car broke down," and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh no, we're just out here making a movie."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I love that.
Yeah, which you couldn't hear at all because it was
Yeah,
the applause was
because
drowning
people
it
were
out.
so in love with it and
Yeah.
applauding.
I will say Connor definitely like helped with that, because as soon as the credits rolled, he did like a big wow and like
Of course he did.
yeah. So
Yeah, he sent me a couple Snapchats of like the screening, which was kind of cool.
oh, nice.
The one in particular was the one where it's the one where I've got the water bottle and you're like
Yep, they got a
treating me
good
like
laugh,
the
yeah.
water fountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did love that bit. I did like a recording of the whole thing. I haven't watched it back yet,
Oh, nice.
yeah, I got that.
Yeah, that's a good one to catch the audience reaction to, because I don't know if you have it or Travis has it or someone has it, but I'm pretty sure there's a recording of the initial screening.
Yeah, I recorded that one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
on this computer hard drive
Somewhere.
somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Because I have such a fond memory of that, because to realize that our short was playing last, and you know,
Yeah.
essentially being in on the joke
Yeah.
instead of like the entire audience. So, you know, it's just I think it adds to the like more baffling experience
Mhm.
of the film, where like there's just this random group of guys that are just like laughing their asses off before anything's even happened.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I think I was, you know, thinking I was getting too excited, but it was one of the later ones that played. But
Okay.
there was a moment where I was like, oh, are they gonna play ours last again? Is that gonna happen again?
That'd be so sick.
It'd be so cool. But it was like third from last or something like that. So
Not bad.
yeah.
As long as it's not first, I feel like we've been lucky where I don't think any of our stuff has ever like played first.
That's gotta be the fucking worst. Like,
Because it's like, who remembers that one? Also, like, I mean, in like in the sense of like a competition, you know.
Right, yeah. Who remembers it? And then like, but just also like if you're watching, I mean, honestly, like it's nice having yours in the middle because then it makes it easy. You know, if you only have to watch like half of other ones, then you get to see yours, and it's a high point, and then you got like another half. But if it's like yours is right at the beginning, and then it's just you got to watch 14 other
Yeah.
ones, and you're just like, I usually try to stay for all of the ones that like I'm a part of, just I guess out of, I guess a mutual respect or whatever. Like even if I don't like all the shorts, I try to, you know, it just seems rude, I guess. But if mine played first, I might just leave. I don't know if I could
I'm like,
stay.
I'm gonna go check the bar, see what the popcorn situation
Yeah.
is. I'm gonna get antsy, especially with some of the ones that are not great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um real quick also, speaking of Lynch, I did want to touch on this because this story started out kind of sad, and I think it is still a little bit sad, but
Super
I
sad.
think it does have a happy ending because um earlier, like last week I want to say, there was like some sort of article, I don't know if it was like an interview with him, but David Lynch basically said that he has emphysema, and as a result he probably really won't be leaving the house at all to direct. Like basically said, if I'm going to direct anything, it'll have to be done remote. I think health wise he's okay, but I think he's just worried about like getting COVID or getting sick, and then that sort
Right.
of like compounding on the emphysema.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it seemed very, very doom and gloom when I saw these articles, and I'm like, Jesus, like, you know, the last thing David Lynch ever directed, I guess, is the Twin Peaks return. I was gonna say
Or is it?
Inland Empire from 2006.
Or what did Jack do?
What did Jack do? His monkey short film. Um, but David Lynch himself did make a statement, and it is very David Lynch,
Yeah.
and it definitely reassured me a little bit. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, yes, I have emphysema from my many years of smoking. I have to say that I enjoyed smoking very much, and I do love tobacco. The smell of it, lighting cigarettes on fire, smoking them. But there is a price to pay for this enjoyment, and the price for me is emphysema. I have now quit smoking for over 2 years. Recently, I had many tests, and the good news is that I am in excellent shape, except for emphysema. I am filled with happiness, and I will never retire. I want you all to know that I really appreciate your concern." So, just a couple things in there. I love the way that he talks about smoking and
Yes.
tobacco.
Yes.
Um, Frank Zappa back in the day said that tobacco was his favorite vegetable. He was another like lifelong smoker. You know, there's videos of him like, you know, he did the thing where he takes his cigarette and he puts it in the headstock of his guitar,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
he plays the solo, and then when he's done, he grabs it and continues smoking.
Mm-hmm.
I did, you know, my brain says I know cigarettes are bad for you. I know this is terrible for your health. No one should do it. It should probably be illegal. But damn if you don't look cool as shit smoking a cigarette sometimes.
Yeah.
And just something about the way that David Lynch appreciates it. He doesn't, you know, make it into a cautionary
Mm-hmm.
tale about not smoking. He's like, "Look, cigarettes rock. Tobacco is cool. Lighting something on fire and smoking it makes you look like a badass. I'm only stopping because I got sick." I just, you know, it's like all the dare programming from like elementary school in my mind is just out the window, and I'm like, yeah, but you look cool doing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, I love that he says, "I will never retire." So,
Yeah.
you know, even if he doesn't end up making anything, you know, it doesn't matter because, you know, the articles that came out seemed very, very doom and gloom, and David Lynch is just like, "I'm never gonna quit."
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I thought that was like it was kind of a sad thing, but then also kind of had like a fairly happy ending. So
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that statement too. I like that. Like, it's not. I think it's good to discourage people from smoking, but at the same time, if he had done one of those, it would have seemed so like disingenuous because I'm like, you know, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I do like that. He just was like, yeah, no, it was awesome. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to ThereWillBeDuds. This is episode 157, and I am your co-host TJ. Wow, and with me as always. I don't know why that keeps coming back. That's so weird.
Whoa,
We haven't done that in
that's been
so
a while.
long.
That's a throwback.
Yeah. With me as always.
As always, I'm Nick, aka just me.
Nice. And as always, we watched a movie. That movie this week being What We Do in the Shadows from 2014, directed by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. It is a mockumentary where the in the universe, a documentary crew follows around a group of vampires living in a flat together in a small town in New Zealand. It leads up to them going to this big kind of ball called the what is it, the like masquerade, the midnight masquerade or something, the undead masquerade or something, but it's really unholy, that's what it is, but it's mostly just like a mockumentary hanging out with some vampires. It's a horror comedy-esque thing, so yeah.
Speaking of horror comedy,
yeah. And yeah, it's I guess it's probably got, I would say, yeah, it got a lot more popular after the FX show came out. They've also made there's a show it's on HBO called Wellington PD or Wellington Paranormal that follows the two police officers.
Yeah.
And then I know they've talked about, and I think it's still kind of in the works or whatever, doing one about the werewolves called Werewolves.
Yes.
So they got like their own like cinematic universe just off of this little weird, weird mockumentary thing from like 10 years ago now.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, this is from 2014. Mm-hmm. This is the second time I've seen it. I think I watched it almost not when it came out, but maybe a year or two after it came out. Probably whenever it like initially. I don't know if it like came to streaming first or if, like
came to
yeah, because I think that's when I initially saw it, and I liked it. I liked it a lot back then, but I'm more familiar with the TV show now than I am with the source material. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting watching this movie. Hearing the music at the very beginning and like the sort of slideshow of like all the historical paintings. Mm-hmm. I like that thing that they do where they'll take like a historical painting and they'll like just put like Jermaine in it, or or like Taika Waititi, they'll like kind of paint their character into the scene to make it look like, oh yeah, they've always been through history. But yeah, it's like, oh shit, this is like the music, almost like the same title sequence, everything. And then the plot of the show follows very similarly to the movie. I mean, I think it expands on it a bit. Like, there's the idea of like the familiar that wants to get turned. In the show, there's like Guillermo. Yeah. And then in the movie, it's I forget Jackie. Her name, Jackie. Yeah. I feel like she's not as huge of a presence. She kind of comes and goes.
No, not really. Yeah. I mean, this is a less than tight 90, so it's
Yeah. It almost feels like a pilot for the show.
It does kind of, yeah.
Because I mean, the shows at the time, like The Office or like Parks and Rec, Arrested Development, very like having that documentary crew feel to them. This fits right in with that.
Yeah. No, it is one of those that like, watching it, I'm like, man, that like The Nice Guys, that's a different kind of vibe, but that's one where like when that movie ends, I'm like, oh fuck, I want to see like a TV series with that.
And though I do like the show, See, and Jermaine and Taika Waititi do show up in the show
Yeah.
for like
So does
a
Deacon.
hand. Does he?
Because
See,
I've watched the scene with like the Vampire Council where they have like a shitload of cameos or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh,
it's the
okay.
three of those. It's like the three main guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because like when we watched the show like a year or two ago, whenever we initially watched it, I knew those two, but I hadn't seen the movie in a while, so like I wouldn't have been like, oh, and there's Deacon too.
Right. Yeah. 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 He's not. Yeah. Definitely not as famous as the other two guys who are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who they are.
Because then Taika Waititi went on to do like Jojo Rabbit, and then he directed like what, Thor: Love and Thunder? Did he direct that one?
He did that one. But he did Ragnarok before, which was like, I think
That's right.
I think that was the next movie he did after this, which is crazy. Like such a jump.
That's
Or no. He did Hunt for the Wilder People, and then he did Thor Ragnarok.
okay.
But still, like a crazy big jump. And I think Thor Ragnarok was what kind of made him like kind of a much like bigger name because people love that one, and then people hate Love and Thunder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I knew he did one of those.
Yeah, he did both. I think they're both fine. I don't love Ragnarok as much as a lot of people, and I don't hate Love and Thunder as much as a lot of people. I think they both got their pros and cons. They both got their positives and negatives as far as like, Taika Waititi isms.
Yeah, I've noticed that like Taika Waititi has kind of become a Lin-Manuel Miranda-esque figure.
A little.
Not in terms of like I don't find him like as like preening and annoying as Lin-Manuel Miranda.
No.
But there's like a certain style. I don't know. I think people got really mad about Jojo Rabbit because it's like, oh, you're playing Hitler. Like, oh, like you can't do that. Like, people, I don't know.
Yeah.
People got mad about that, and I was like, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, there were like Hitler jokes in this movie. There was like a Hitler gag where like one of the vampires was literally like, yeah, I used to be a Nazi.
Yeah.
And then like they dressed him up in SS uniforms and then took like a Hitler speech and made him say, and then with our new like German like Nazi vampires will
rule the world.
It's like yeah.
After the war which the Nazis lost, I don't know if you know that the Nazis lost that war. If you were a Nazi after the war, and if you were a vampire, and if you were a Nazi vampire, no way.
I don't know. I think this style is perfect for this movie. Like the sort of, again, like Arrested Development. Like you could almost hear Ron Howard's voice. Like the vampire Nazis did not win World War II. Like something like that. You know, kind of like a cutaway gag type thing. And I think this style is like perfect for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually thought of Arrested Development when watching this. Like Arrested Development / Community / this are like also some of my like favorite comedies, show comedies. Like I've seen all of them so much. Like I've seen this movie and those shows like so many times that like when I watch them now, I don't like, it's not like I laugh out loud as much. There's a couple times in this because it's been a little while since I've seen it. There's a couple like bits that kind of caught me off guard, but most of it I'm just like I know it by heart, so it's not like a surprising like laugh out loud moment. But it's like, and same thing with those shows, but like being so familiar with them and so familiar with like the jokes and stuff, I still like really enjoy rewatching them because it allows me to kind of appreciate like the finer details in the jokes or whatever, where it's like, oh, I know the punchline or whatever, so I'm going to watch like this random extra in the background and like see what they do, because it's so much fun because like I feel like everybody has like knows the energy and the tone of this movie perfectly, because you could really watch like most anybody in these scenes at any time and they're doing something or they're like reacting or acting in just like a funny manner, like but like really appropriate to the characters and stuff. There's so many like just little facial expressions or like gestures or things that they do just kind of in the background or whatever. That's like all over Arrested Development community too.
Oh yeah, like the werewolves, like because there's a group of them, or like the Unholy Masquerade where there's witches and there's zombies.
Yeah.
You can kind of scan the room and just see everyone like the zombies kind of like shambling around like that. Like you said, everybody has the same energy. Like they all get what the bit is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is also now, I did the original Avengers Trinity War short before this movie was made, but like when we came back and we redid like the movie and everything, the feature, this was a big inspiration, like tonally, and I think like if you watch the event like Trinity War, you kind of get just like how just how the scenes go, how like the characters kind of flow together, like that way of like, that's partly why I like Trinity War so much, because I also think that like everybody we had in that was good at just kind of like doing stuff. And then most directly what I pulled from this was the intro, because originally Trinity War just started with like where the short film starts, which just we're shooting the scene in the basement, and then we're filming and we're talking to the camera. That was like where the feature started, and I was like, I can't, that seems like such a weird, like awkward, abrupt place to start it. So I was like, I need to have something before that. So I didn't like pull any lines or gags or whatever, but I was like, so this one starts with like, Viago like waking up from his coffin, and then he goes around and he like wakes the others up, and he's like, we got a meeting. And Trinity War starts with me like answering the door and be like, hey, yeah, we're about to start filming, and like I go wake Isaiah up, and then I think maybe I go wake Dex up. I don't remember, but it's kind of like that. And then the whole title sequence for Avengers is just like this, where it's like titles, the like really guitar twangy music, and then it cuts back to us like doing talking for a little bit, and then back to titles, back to us doing stuff. And so that was the most kind of direct pull, but that's another reason this movie's kind of special to me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would like, of the last few like short films that we've done, I would say like we've done at least 3 in this style, I think.
Yeah.
Like
Wendy's
for sure, Trinity War, and then
Step Bro
a little
to
bit.
an extent.
It's more like reality TV. But I think those styles, like I don't know, in terms of like doing comedy, I think it's like it's one of the best ways to like incorporate multiple types of comedy, like visual gags, like obviously like written stuff. I don't know, there's so many angles and options that you can do. And I think that's why I also like feel like I gravitate towards that style, like that mockumentary style.
And yeah, it's not like that's like, as long as you can like think of like new ideas, that's like my favorite like way to shoot, because I think it works the best for like our kind of like run and gun style of filmmaking anyways. And I just think it's funny and entertaining, and it's like, I don't know, I love the kind of discombobulatedness of it. It's fun to like piece together, and like when you're editing, it's almost like a puzzle you gotta like figure out.
Yeah because looking at like some of the IMDb trivia for this movie, it said that they had like 150-page script that they wrote, and then like they didn't show anybody.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi wrote 150 pages of script, but chose not to show it to a single person involved in the film, both crew and cast. They only described broad strokes of what each scene was about, sometimes providing a beginning and an end point. This was to keep things spontaneous and allow the actors to be surprised by the events unfolding before their eyes. Which I think is almost kind of what we just described, minus the script part.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of like how Trinity War was, but instead of me not showing anybody, it's just nobody read it.
In this instance, he wanted us to read the script, and we were like, "Nah, it's all right.
No, I didn't.
We're good."
I didn't have like a fully like 100% ironed out script, but I know I had like it was more than an out.
outline of
It was
some
more than an
sort.
out. Like
Yeah.
I would have like a scene and then like a set of lines, like some dialogue that I was like, we have to get this out. But it would be that, and then like 3 minutes of stuff that was not in the script at all, and then like
Yeah.
30 seconds of what I was like, okay, we need to have this required, and then everything else we can just make up, and that's kind of how it went.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm mostly joking because like a lot of what I love about that is like stuff that I didn't even like come up with or whatever. It's just the improvisation is part of it, is part of why it's so fun for me, I guess. But yeah. So interesting little tidbit. Complete coincidence. Was speaking of Gen Con. So when I went to go pick up our badges for Gen Con, I go to the GM room or whatever, and I was wearing, which I meant to wear for this. Oh well, I have that shirt for this movie. It's the Jermaine cat, like when he's like it's like the little part in the movie where he like opens the door and he's like the cat on the table.
Yes.
Which that has a really good kind of. It's like I don't think like I caught it like the first time I watched it, but like if you pay attention to the dialogue, because they mention like in a previous scene like
Vladislav used to be extremely powerful. He could hypnotize crowds of people.
Great orgies, 20, 30 women.
He could turn into all sorts of animals, but now he never gets the faces right.
But anyways, I was wearing that shirt, and one of the volunteers working in the GM room, he was a Kiwi from the town where they filmed this movie in. And he was like, yeah, like the shop that they go to. He's like, I go to that like every day. It's like right down the street from my house. I was like, that was like, how crazy. Because it's like just, the small town in the small country on the opposite side of the world. And sure, Gen Con's a big convention, but like that also kind of adds to it. There's so many people there. And like, I just happened to meet this guy who was like from the town with like the shirt that I was wearing. That was wild.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the cat like out of context. Because as soon as I saw it, I was like, I've seen that on like a meme,
like some GIF,
or whatever. Yeah. Looking it up now. Because it is like a really, really quick bit.
Yeah, it's
it's almost like you see it for like a second, and then it kind of goes by. Because I think that's one of the scenes where, is that when they're chasing Nick around?
Yeah, it's like right before they kill him or whatever.
Right. And maybe it's because I'm like, I've got the show on the mind so much, but I could have sworn that Peter comes back to life. I thought that was like. Because I think in the show What We Do in the Shadows, there's like a Baron vampire who's kind of like
the Peter.
He's like the big poobah. Yeah, he's basically like this old style, more like a Nosferatu style, Dracula type guy.
Classic.
And and then in the show, Guillermo, who's like I don't know, are you gonna watch it? You don't care.
I know. Well, if you're gonna tell me, I know that like he's one of their familiars, but then it turns out that he's actually like a vampire hunter, right?
He's got vampire hunter blood.
So like hunter blood.
a lot of the jokes are him inadvertently like killing a ton of vampires.
Oh, okay.
Like there's a scene where they're at a ball, and like I think the main vampires are like going to be executed over something.
Okay.
And Guillermo, who's kind of like this, he's like kind of a slightly pudgier, not like a super athletic guy.
Yeah.
Like is very adept at just like not even looking, just being like, killing vampires like it's nothing.
Okay.
But there's like a scene where like this Baron shows up, and Guillermo like he like either trips and falls or something, but basically like rips down a curtain and sunlight just lasers him, and he just like basically the same thing that happens to Peter, like smolders into ash. but then like it's revealed in like a next season where he kind of reformed. Like he was charred, but it didn't fully kill him, so he like
okay.
after a period of time gradually
He could, like,
reformed.
heal or whatever.
Yeah. So
Yeah, no.
for whatever reason, I thought that was gonna happen because I thought Peter was in it much more, because that is like a very good bit to have, like a sort of like non-verbal, like this guy's from the 1300s,
Yeah.
and he's like
No,
one of
it's
our
old.
like the premise is
Oh, he's-
the
he's
premise is so
older.
good.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, no, because that's another like quick line where it's the only time they reference it, but it's right at the beginning when they're at their meeting, you know, when they're talking about like the chores they need to do or whatever.
Is Peter coming? Shall we wait?
Peter's 8,000 years old. We're not going to have Peter at the meeting.
It's like, and like the delivery of that is perfect. Just like, it just, you know, he is what he is, and it's like he's 8,000 years old. He's just so yeah, he's supposed to be like ancient.
Yeah.
I
And
wonder
that's-
if like the idea is that he's supposed to be like the first vampire or something like that.
Yeah, because like I think that's like another aside where I think, is it Viago or
Viago
Vlad
is
that
Taika, and then Jermaine is Vladislav.
I think one of them basically said that like Peter turned them.
Oh, that was Deacon. Yeah.
Okay, so Deke. Okay,
Because he's
Yeah, 'cause-
that's when he's like, oh, I was approaching a castle and blah blah blah, and then and he goes,
that's right.
and it was Peter,
And then it was like, oh yeah,
and we've been friends, and we're still friends to this day.
right. But yeah, that opening scene is like so perfect of like a tone setter for the movie, where it's like we're taking this very like sort of like kind of horrific, scary, you know, like draconian thing,
Mhm.
and juxtaposing it with just like, you didn't wash the dishes, like they're
Yeah.
roommates.
Yeah,
Like I mean I know I'm just like describing the movie, but it's like such a brilliant concept, and I think that's like what makes these types of mockumentaries cool. It's like you have to have one thing and then like something crazy to juxtapose it with something like totally normal and mundane.
Mhm.
And I think that's like the magic sauce.
Yeah,
How you get that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the movie is kind of like at odds with its own reality or logic, like in every other line. Because like even in that scene where they're talking about the dishes,
The point is, Deacon, that you have not done the dishes for 5 years.
Vladislav is right. It's unacceptable to have so many bloody dishes all over this bench like that.
I'm so embarrassed when people come over here.
What does it matter? You bring them over, you kill them.
there's all this like constant back and forth of like they're like trying to like adjust to modern society, but they're also these like ancient like demon creature things, and how those things will like can like never really kind of work together, or how like their, you know, their fashion sense is like all like completely fucked because they're all hundreds of years old, but they're trying to like adjust to like modern trends, so it doesn't really look like either. It doesn't look like old, it doesn't look like Victorian England, but it doesn't really look modern either. It's this weird like just ugly mixture of the two.
Yeah. I feel like there's a one point like one of them is wearing like Adidas track pants, but then it's like got like the ruffled collar.
Yeah,
or,
they
like,
always
I
have
think
like ruffled, like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I feel like, is that, I don't know if that's like a Jackie line, which is like, because like it's her like, you know, steaming their clothes. She's like, these guys they wear blouses. Like I think she's like, you know, it's supposed to be this hyper masculine thing, and they're just like dressing like women. And she's like,
It's a dick biting contest.
she's like,
I think she calls it.
That's right.
All I'm saying is that, you know, if I had a penis, I would have been bitten years ago.
And yeah, again, like juxtaposing old and new ideas. I think that's like another great bit, is that like, you know, it's like the nightclub they have to go to. It's like a modern thing. They're trying to go to the nightclub,
Yeah.
but they can only be invited in. Because
Yeah.
that's like how vampires work. So there's just like scenes where they're talking to the bouncer, and they're like, please ask us to come in. And he's,
Yeah.
what is he? I feel like he says something that's like basically you can go in, but he's not asking.
He's not
them to.
invite.
He's
Yeah,
basically
I
just
don't know what he says exactly.
Yeah, he's like you can just do it, and he's like, please invite us, and he's
Yeah.
like, no, just go. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what makes the show work is that there's so much lore of like vampirism in American culture that there's just so many things to reference. Like even, reading on the Wikipedia, like Vladislav's character, it says it's like partially based on Gary Oldman in Bram Stoker's
That makes
Dracula
sense.
the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like you got that type of Dracula, you've got like the Nosferatu style of Dracula, and there's just like so many stories and lore of like everything that it's just like there's so much material to mine from that I'm not surprised that they pulled like a 4-season TV show out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like they are all kind of supposed to represent maybe different kinds of like vampires in media. I could totally see that. Like maybe Deacon's like I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking it because of the one liner. He could be like the 80s like Lost Boys type vampire. I don't know. Like
They do. I feel like they
Boy-
do reference that.
They do. That's the line I was talking about. It's
the worms.
yeah, it's the Biscotti part, and he's like,
We stole that idea from the Lost Boys, but I put a nice twist on it.
Nick, how did it feel to have a snake for a penis?
Jackie, my penis has disappeared. There's a cobra snake.
No one's going to mistake your penis for a cobra neck, okay? Believe
What do you
you
put on
me.
my spaghetti?
No, it is just a normal penis.
I'm out.
and then the reaction where he like he's like, and after that he's like I'm out. He's like I'm not doing this anymore. And then Nick like leaves, and then the other girl's still in there, and he's like, whatever her name is, Josephine, would you like some biscotti? Like he's just gonna do it again.
Yeah, just like doing it in front of them, like not even realize, like
just like they have this constant like casual, again, as much as they like act like they're trying to fit in with like normal human society, they have this like casual disregard for humanity in the way that you would kind of like think that vampires would if humans are basically cattle to them.
yeah.
Where like they do that stuff, like they'll do that whole thing to Nick, and then they'll be like, okay, and now this other one that's here that heard all this, but she's whatever, we can do it to her, it doesn't matter, we can just hypnotize her if we have to or whatever. Or like
It's like we already slaughtered this one cow, we're just gonna do it again to this other one because like you're all the same.
Yeah. Or like the girl that that Taika, like he gets her to like come over to the house.
I was about to say.
She's like talking about how she wants to like travel after college, and you see his face like
Yeah, he almost has like a second, like a bit of doubt about what he's about to do.
Yeah.
He just does it.
Yeah. He's like, okay. And then what he's like afterwards, he's like, but I think she had a really good time, so.
Yeah. Juxtaposed with him like covered in blood, sitting there trying to cover up the wound, and it's like just spraying out like a Tarantino blood splatter.
Yeah. Which they go back to again when Nick is running through the house. They have it's another joke callback, I guess, because he's eating the blonde girl, but he like bit her jugular again because it's like happening. It's like doing the same thing again. Yeah. What was I gonna say about? Oh, the other one I was thinking of is like where he's like, I don't know, like they'll like in the, especially, I mean, I guess you do this with like documentary crews anyways, but they're like, they bring them around like to the unholy masquerade, and like the vampires start being like, they realize that Stu is just a human. And they're like, oh, you brought a human here to us, and you're not going to share him with us? And then they're like, oh, well, the camera guys are humans too. Like, you could maybe eat that one or something. Like, just, yeah, maybe that guy. But they're like, not Stu. And then Nick's like, he's my best mate, but I want to eat him so bad. He's got the reddest face I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's another good like element of that style is like doing the like, kind of like talking head style interview, but then again, cuz like I feel like when it cuts to Stu, he's like, he's like under something, like fixing something, and then he pops his head up and like his cheeks are like kind of like rosacea or whatever. Like it's just a perfect like match to like what they're talking about versus like B-roll of him just like doing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the character of Stu is awesome. I
love
that
Stu.
guy.
Yeah. He's
like he basically shows up and like becomes far more useful to them than like Nick the vampire, and it just like makes him insanely jealous that they like him more.
No, I don't even know if he's jealous of Stu, because I think he also recognizes that Stu is just like the coolest guy ever. But there is like resentment between. It's mostly Deacon that just hates Nick. Most of the other guys are kind of like, oh, they're welcome Nick and fine. But then it's, But yeah, Stu's.
He starts telling every
character.
person that he's a vampire.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, Twilight? Yeah, Twilight. That's me. Yeah. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, really? Twilight? Well, I'm a vampire hunter. And he's like, fuck off.
Which is a great setup, because then it totally turns out to be true.
Yeah. When they like turn his head around, like it's like spun backwards. He's like, oh fuck. He's like, yeah, I saw that guy at the bar. Stu's great. I mean, I was gonna say this when we were talking about like, oh yeah, I mentioned how like you thought Jackie was in it more, or like, it's another, I guess, testament to the strength of, I guess, say like maybe performances and the writing, I guess. It reminds me of like classic, like some of my favorite like classic Disney movies, how like characters can be in them for like a scene and yet they're so memorable. And like I think of like Aristocats and like, the jazz band Cats, or like the geese, the family of geese, who are like only in like 5-10 minutes of that movie, but they feel like big characters or like more substantial characters. Or in this, there's like, I mean, I guess Stu does kind of eventually become a major character or whatever, but like there's Jackie, or the police officers, who I also love, or Peter, who kind of comes and goes, but they're all like very memorable, and it's just like because like they're all so funny, and it's just good. Like the jokes are good, the performances are good, and like the police officer sequence is one of my favorite like bits in the whole movie. I love the repeated.
What's that up
like,
there?
Yeah, and you hear the music.
Oh, no smoke detector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's an open bucket underneath an electrical outlet. That's just fire hazard, mate. and then then when they're in the basement and they're like, oh, and you see that up there?
Hang on a minute. What do we got here?
What is it?
This.
Oh,
You can see it as clearly as I can. Adhesive, mate. It's flammable. Then you got a lamp on top of that, directly underneath the power source.
Oh, that is quite bad.
It's very
guys.
bad.
It's a very bad
And no
combination.
smoke detectors again, are there?
No.
Yes, there are.
Yes, there are. I see
Okay,
them.
there
Yeah,
are.
that's good.
Seemed very the character, Jermaine's character, Vladislav.
Yeah.
I do love his performance in that, but man, if they had gotten Julian Barrett, because he looked like Julian Barrett, a shit ton. I was wondering if either of them were gonna be, but I guess these guys are New Zealanders.
Yeah.
And Noel and Julian are English.
English, yeah. And Noel kind of plays
Slightly
that like
different.
that, yeah. He's not really, but did you watch the IT Crowd or no? Did you?
I've seen bits. I've seen a little bit of it.
Oh, okay. Because Noel plays a character who like he's not a vampire, but it's like very heavily implied, or like there's like joke, like he's pale. He lives in like this dark basement. I think they catch him sleeping like upside down, so like he could that's kind of what I was like thinking. Like maybe he could make a cameo in the show too.
I don't think he ever does, which is really unfortunate. I feel like it's
Yeah.
a huge missed opportunity, especially with like Matt Berry, because like all those guys, maybe they do. I don't remember, but it's like it is funny that like all those shows have like the same rotating cast of characters, because like Richard Ayoade is in The Mighty Boosh with Matt Berry, and then they're in like the IT Crowd, and then Noel and Julian are in this and that, and like there's just so many connective strands.
Yeah. It's kind of like it kind of have that somewhat over here in America. It's just like it's just not as funny. I don't know. There's not as many like but like especially that like the Judd Apatow kind of wider group of people. It's like I mean I like some of them. I'm not saying it's all just like hack unfunny people, but it's not as like strong. I don't think.
Yeah, it is like that similar idea of like, here's the script, but we're just gonna shoot and let you guys kind of do your thing and see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe just British people are cleverer, are funnier in terms of like improvise, because I feel like American improvisation in that stuff is just like, who can be vulgar, or who can be like how I know you're gay, like that type of thing. Where it's like I feel like with British improvisational humor, it's more erudite. Maybe it's the accent that's like doing the heavy lifting.
I think it is. I mean, comedy is subjective, obviously. I think like most art or whatever, but comedy is very subjective, and I think it's just. I mean, obviously it works because those are like I mean, like I don't know if he's still making stuff now, but I mean his movies and his style of like comedy movies were very popular for a while, and I think it's not that they're bad, it's just they're playing to American tendencies, and American tendencies is like dumb, crude humor. Like, man, I've stepped into some bits of the new Deadpool, and it does not ring funny to me at all.
Ooh,
it's so incredibly unfunny to me. And yeah, I do have a bias against Ryan Reynolds in particular, but a lot of it is just like we're just gonna say swear words and penis and stuff, and they swear in What We Do in the Shadows and the IT Crowd and stuff, but it's not like that's just like the punchline or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And like that
American
type of
audiences
swearing,
are just dumb.
It's like that sort of like very like early 2010s like sort of compound swears, where it's just like you're a shit basket or a douche nozzle or like that type of shit.
That's literally. There's a post-credits scene in Deadpool and Wolverine that is literally like just that. That's like the whole joke, and it goes for so long. And people in the audience laugh, but me holding my dustpan and broom, I'm just waiting for them to leave.
A single tear down.
Yeah.
So you get the dumbing down of like the common American audience member.
Yeah.
I do feel like I need to see that movie only because I did enjoy the first two for whatever reason. Maybe because it's just
probably
like
not the worst movie
violent,
in the world.
empty calories.
Yeah.
It's just violent, empty calories, and I'm like, I don't know. This isn't fulfilling, and I'm gonna shit later, but it's good right now.
As much as I dislike Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool, I am a big Hugh Jackman Wolverine fan, so it might be one that I'll catch on streaming.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to pay to see it.
Right.
Like pay, like go to a theater.
Yeah. What? Speaking of swears. There's a swear part that is funny in this, where, it's the like the end of the movie when the werewolves are like trying to chain themselves up to the tree. to the trees, so to like stop themselves or whatever.
Why did you get a combination lock?
I lost my key last time.
Okay, well, it's probably 4 zeros. That's the factory setting, is it? Fuck off to a tree.
Hey, werewolves, not swearwolves.
Yeah, I know.
Werewolves,
Well,
not
on
swearwolves,
transformation
but yeah.
nights, it's all right? I'm getting stressed out.
I was just reminding you.
Stop talking and chain yourself up, you dickhead.
I don't know, like his like trying to justify it in the moment is like so funny to me. Like, it's okay if it's a full moon night. Because it's all like these dumb, like arbitrary rules anyways. Like, same thing like the vampires are following. It's all like they're trying to like set all these like standards for themselves that are like impossible for them to really follow.
Right. Yeah, it's like both groups are trying to like assimilate with like modern cultures in like these very like obscure and strange ways, like arbitrarily making it so like they can't swear, and it's like why?
Yeah, why?
Like, they're like, oh, proper culture, you don't swear, so they just don't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You dickhead.
Yeah.
It's such a. Yeah, I don't know. It's like maybe it's the accent, maybe it's just like the emphasis, the way that they say it. Because like again, to go back to our stuff, there's a certain way of swearing that is so funny.
Yeah.
Like the part that I always come back to in Avengers is the part where I think it's one of Kevin's freakouts.
Okay.
Where I think it's like Travis is like trying to tell him about like autofocus or something like that, and like you kind of break down and you start yelling at the crew, and there's this one shot where I'm like standing off in the distance. I don't even think I was like in the shot. I think I was just doing this because I thought it was funny.
Is it where you're like
I'm standing in the woods? I'm standing in. That's a good part too. But I'm standing, and I think I've got my hands over my head, and I'm pretending like I'm peeing, and like whoever's operating the camera, right as it turns over to me, you're like, and you need to put your fucking dick in your pants. And as you say that, I turn and I look at the camera.
Yeah, that
like
was just perfect timing. Because it wasn't. I was talking to Isaiah I was talking to Dex there when I said that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the time that was
right
just,
as the camera went by.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was like crazy good timing.
But again, in that short, we also consciously like beeped out the swears because we thought it'd be funnier.
It is
like the implication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's ways to use swears, where they're funny. And I will say, as much as I was saying that like just swearing isn't a punchline, it could be if it's with a New Zealand accent, because I do think it's funnier when they swear.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just Rhys Darby, because he just has such a good voice for it. Because one of my favorite bits in Flight of the Conchords, because he plays their manager in that show.
Okay, I knew I recognized him from somewhere.
Yeah. And he. Because they kind of do the same thing where they kind of, that must have just been a them thing, because Taika Waititi was also like, he directed some of Flight of the Conchords, and I think he wrote some of it with Jermaine and Brett, and they kind of have a light thing where like they don't really swear either. They're like pretty clean, and there's a part where they get in like this disagreement with Murray, who's Rhys Darby, and he's like,
I've had it with you guys. I'm so angry, I feel like swearing.
Oh, Murray, you wouldn't swear at us.
Go fuck yourself, prick.
It's really good. I'm just gonna have to play the clip in the episode because it's so
please
so
do.
fucking funny. So maybe it's just the accent. It's like if you do that, then you can just have people swearing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Australian accent does it for me too, because like I restarted Smiling Friends to show Chloe some of the earlier episodes, and in the first episode it's like the Desmond's Day Out one. Pim tries to like cheer Desmond up by taking him to like his family's house for like a family dinner.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like his mom.
Aren't they all
his
voiced
mom's
by
like,
him, by Michael Cusack?
I think by Michael. I believe they are.
Yeah.
And like his mom is just like honey, come sit at the table, and he's like, oh, will you shut up, woman? I've been in the mines for 48 bloody hours. And it's like, yeah, he's just yelling, but like the way that their accents work with like, you know, swearing or yelling, it is just so funny.
Yeah.
Like just the consonants of their voices. I don't know. It's so great.
Yeah. Man, I hope none of them. I hope we don't have any listeners in those countries, because this is probably really degrading. You got cute little accents.
Like, yeah. Like, nah, we get it.
Yeah. No. Got more to say? Are we gonna? I don't know. It's funny. This is one where
move on. It's
there's not. It's, you know, it's one of those where it's like, it's kind of, I don't know. There's not a lot to like dig your teeth into, but
yeah,
you know, like we did a lot more just kind of talking around it than the movie itself, but it's
yeah,
good.
because like the plot of the movie is like relative. I mean, it's a simple premise, and I think that's what makes it like work so well, is that it's like draconian vampires trying to live in the modern world. Is like that's basically it, and they kind of get into situations where old meets new. But I think the what's interesting about it is the style that they do it in, like that mockumentary style, and I think that's where most of the conversation kind of comes from. And that's obvious. I mean, obviously that's what we talked about a lot, because that's also like kind of in our wheelhouse of like stuff that we've made, and like that genre of filmmaking is just it's so fun. Yeah.
All right. I can kick us off, because I know. Yeah, like I said, while I don't know, I almost wonder if like that's kind of what solidifies it still as like one of my favorite comedies, is that thing that like I've seen it so much, and like how I said, it's not like ha 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 out loud laughing, but I still like get like it's a big comfort movie for me. I think that's it. This is like one of my like top like comfort movies that I can just throw on and have a good time. Yeah, I love the characters, the style, obviously a big influence. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's top 5. I don't know, maybe top 3. I don't really like comedies. When I was a kid, that was like, of course, like big, you know, favorite genre. Now I'm like, I feel like my top comedies is kind of, I mean, I definitely have a few, but I'm like, how tight can I make that list? Like, I know Clue's up there.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like for me, like The Nice Guys is definitely like a comfort movie. Like,
yeah,
I think I saw that movie like 3 times in like a calendar year, which is a lot. I'm not someone who like I'm gonna watch this movie like 4 times, you know. Like, it's like, okay, I haven't seen this in a while, I'll revisit it. But like, I saw The Nice Guys like at Wealthy, and then we showed some other friends, and then Chloe and I just watched it because we wanted to. And I was like, I saw it 3 times in like the span of like a few months, and I still like laughed hard at like certain parts. Like, it's timeless. And I think are you done with your review? Because I'm kind of rolling into
perfect. This works.
Because I was like, this movie, again, I haven't seen it in a while. I saw it like a few years maybe after it came out, and then I haven't really seen it again since then. But then I watched the show, and I think watching the show kind of gives me a greater appreciation for this.
Okay.
Because I do like the show. I think the show now in its like 4th or 5th season, kind of running out of steam a little bit. Kind of running out of steam. The first couple seasons, though, I will say are very funny, and it has a lot to do with like the style of this movie. And it's like, man, I do wish that Vladislav and
Viago,
the other guy, Viago, I wish that they were in it more, because when they do show up, it is pretty great.
Yeah.
So all that being said, I think I settled on a 9 for this one. I like it quite a bit. It's very, it's very timeless. That style is like a style that I love. I mean, that's why, like, shows like Arrested Development or I guess Parks and Rec. 30 Rock isn't really like that sort of documentary crew style, but I feel like it's kind of
It's
in that vein
adjacent,
a little bit.
yeah.
Same with Community.
Yeah.
But then, like, the documentary style episodes of Community are great.
Are
The
some
one
of
where,
the
like, they're
best.
shooting the commercial and the dean goes crazy.
That one and
they're
the
like
one in
kind of doing it.
the hospital too. Those are both like two of the best episodes. The one where
is
like
that...
Pierce has like a heart attack or something, and they go there for his like bequeathments or whatever.
And he meets LeVar Burton.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
it's
just
the LeVar Burton one. Yeah, yeah.
He's like, you can't disappoint a picture.
Yeah,
or something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Love that style. It's like one of my favorite like methods of doing comedy. And also the Kiwi accent is very funny. So
yeah.
9.
Nice. Yeah, I'll keep meaning to try to give the show another chance. I like the people in it. I like, Matt Berry. I love. I like the.
Well, it's funny because Matt Berry is basically
just
Vladislav, like
right. Yeah, I know
the long hair, the mustache, the sort of sexual conquest guy.
Yeah, I know they kind of like, approximate the different ones. Like the main guy's kind of Viago. And I like that guy too. I've seen him in like a couple of things. The Kaven Novak, I think is that guy's name. And then Mark Proksch, I like him too. He's the energy vampire guy.
Yes.
That was the one that I remember. Like I was like, that's a good character. That's a good like gag. Like he was consistently funny. Like I remember like really liking his character.
Yeah, he's another good character because like he's like a day walker. Like he's able to go out like, and there would be like a scene where someone was like sitting in an office. And he's like just boring them with like minutia.
See like his face.
Yeah, it'll cut over to him and like his eyes glow and you can see that he's just like
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that shit is awesome. I love him. And then there's like another energy vampire that he meets. So they have like an energy vampire off.
Is that
where,
in the
like,
first season?
I think it might be.
Because I think I've seen that episode, or that sounds
They're just
familiar.
like trying to depress each other and like they're just like one-upping each other with sad shit. Man, I gotta watch those first couple seasons again.
Yeah, one of the pictures of him when you go to him on Google is just, you can't really see it, but it's him in that. He's also
I like him as an actor. I know he did stuff with like, didn't he do stuff with On Cinema?
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, he's kind of I would call him the equivalent. He's like the Rich Evans for On Cinema, where he's not like a main guy, but he's like the next main guy. So he's not in like every episode or anything like that, but he's the third main cast member, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's so fucking funny what they do with his character in that show. Because he's kind of adjacent to his character in What We Do in the Shadows, where he's just like this completely like uncharismatic like loser guy who like is not really good at anything or entertaining at anything, and Tim just like fucking hates him. But Greg will kind of entertain his ideas or like having him on because he makes Greg look less boring and uninteresting, basically.
I mean, he plays a very similar character in Better Call Saul too.
He's in that too. Yeah,
he's like the baseball cards guy who, like, as soon as he gets any money, he immediately buys like a big yellow Hummer.
Yeah,
like, but my baseball cards.
Yeah, maybe he just.
And then I think that's like the squat cobbler. Doesn't he like? Does Saul make him like film a video of him like dipping his ass in like pies or something like that?
Is that what happens?
He like blackmail. I think so. Like I know that's like he's like the Chicago squat cobbler or
Oh
something
no,
like
that's
that.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man! It's crazy that like they have that stuff in that show, and then like also where that show ends up going with like Lalo and stuff. Like just such a fucking range of emotions.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
everything.
same with like Breaking Bad, like Jesse, like with the putting the like the
air
air
hose
into like his hazmat suit.
Yeah. You got some silly
And
stuff
then
in
yeah,
that,
where he ends up.
Yeah. Okay, then I guess we can just shill for HBO.
Yeah,
with our
let's
two
shill
show
for
reviews.
HBO.
Okay.
Well, are you really going to be shilling? I see you have, based on what I see on there, are you a fan of this? Or...
I am, yeah, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if you're saying that like if I don't follow general discourse around shows that I watch. I just kind of watch the shows. So I don't know what the general takeaway is for the new season of House of the Dragon, but I thought it was fucking great. The first season, I was watching it and like kind of as it went on, it got better, but the whole time I was like, this is good. I'm like, this is like nice. It's much better than like the last few seasons of Game of Thrones, but it's not nearly as good as like the first few seasons of Game, because like the first four seasons of Game of Thrones are great television, really great stuff. And then it, after that it kind of goes downhill steadily.
Peters out a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And the first season was like maybe season 5, like right where it starts to drop off, I guess.
Oh, okay.
But now season 2, I would kind of put more in those early ones. I thought it was really, really good. Like I have, we like mutual friends who watch Game of Thrones. And I'd be like, "Oh, you're watching House of the Dragon." If this was first season and they were like, "Yeah, it's not really, doesn't really seem interesting," I'd be like, "That's fair." But now I've been going back to them and be like, "You should maybe watch the show now," because like now with the second season, it's like really picking up, and like the showrunners and everybody did even say that like the first season is basically, which I get, because I think of this when people are trying to like turn me on to like a brand new show, and like again it kind of helps being like it is a help that it's like a tie-in to Game of Thrones. You're familiar with the world. It's the Better Call Saul thing. It's like it's easier to kind of get roped into it when you kind of know the universe and all that.
There's like some level of familiarity with like the setting and the characters and like the tone.
Then if it was just like a completely brand new thing,
right?
But they said like basically that first season it spans over, it's 10 episodes and it's like 20 years, I think. It's like each episode, it's a really odd structure. And the last few episodes I think are like pretty tight, like within the same year or whatever. But the first 6-7 episodes, it's like a 5-year jump between each episode basically. It's so weird. But that first season is basically just the prelude or like the prologue to the main story, and now we're in the main story. I'm like, okay, cool, now I'm here for this. And I know they're only planning on doing like 1 or 2 more seasons, because as opposed to Game of Thrones that was based on a whole series,
right,
this is based off a single book that George R.R. Martin wrote. And it's already done. That's the other thing that's like good to know, because
they're not trying to like
make up
what would Sir George Martin do,
Yeah, where like they had the first 4 or 5 books, I think 5 books for Game of Thrones, for A Song of Ice and Fire, and it's like basically when the books end, that's where the show kind of starts falling off, because then they had to improvise and whatever. But this, it's like you got the whole story, and that's it. So, if it follows the same, if it has the same strength of writing as his other books, theoretically it should be good, right? I'm like they can't, they can't do it again. They can't do it to us again.
they can't like pull the football away as soon as you're about to kick it.
Yeah, and so I think that it has like there's it has positives behind, like, to it ending up good. And yeah, it's such a different story too, because Game of Thrones is so sprawling, so many different families of different ilk, all spread across this whole country. And House of the Dragon is like, it's primarily a single family, and it's like the royal family.
Okay.
There's some other characters, of course, not literally just that, but it's very different from Game of Thrones in that sense. And also that, like, there's not a lot of, like, good characters. It's almost like it's almost exactly like medieval Succession, because it's literally a war of succession. That's like literally what they're fighting, because it's basically like the king dies in the first season, and then it's his daughter and his son both contesting for, like, the crown. They're like, oh no, he named me heir. Oh no, he named me heir. And then they go to war, and that's
Did
the
he
rest of the
underline Kendall or cross it out?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's literally like somebody heard him say the son's name, but it's like, did they misinterpret what he meant by that?
Okay.
So
That's
it
awesome.
kind of
I like
is
that.
literally that. Yeah. And so yeah, it's like if Succession was just in medieval times and they had dragons, and yeah.
I know this probably has to exist, but someone needs to take the Succession theme song and cut a house. There's a free one for you if it hasn't been made.
That'd be awesome.
That you want a few milli views on YouTube. Cut together a trailer or an opening credit sequence of House of the Dragon with the Succession music.
Yeah. But I don't know if I said it yet, but another reason that it's like Succession is because there's not a lot of characters to root for. Like, a lot of the characters kind of suck. I don't know if there's any character that's like just like an out and out like good guy. They all got baggage or just kind of shitty. And then, I mean, obviously you gotta put your fantasy world blinders on, because then you're like, well, yeah, they're royalty, and like, the monarchy is kind of like fucked, and like, oh, royal blood, it's like, of course in real world terms they have more qualms with like them and stuff, but and then the on the flip side, I'm also really dreading like what's to come, because as much as like I think it's not that like I hate every single character and I want every single character to die, you do get attached to some of them in some extent, or like even just their stories, even if they're not like good people or whatever, you get attached to the stories.
You're invested. But
more so it's the dragons, because as you know just from Game of Thrones, the show, this war is talked about, it's referred to in the histories, because this is 200 years before Game of Thrones, I think. And it's referred to in the histories as the Dance of Dragons, because in the world of Game of Thrones, there are no more dragons in Westeros, and the reason is because they all killed each other in the Dance of Dragons. So because of Game of Thrones, that all of the dragons are going to die out, and they've killed 3 so far, and it's a lot. I get so attached to these these CGI giant lizards, and man, they really make you feel it with some of them. They really make it, and like it's intentional. Like there's one, like they're setting it up. They set it up so it's such a like, it feels so cheap when you think about it in retrospect. But there's one where this one character is going out to battle, and she meets her dragon in the dragon pit, and they touch heads, and it like nuzzles her, and it's like 100 times her size, but they're like dogs to these people, basically. They're like royal pets. And then she sees it get its head chewed off by another dragon, and then she like falls to her death with it. So it's like it sets you up with like that really sweet, moment between the two of them right before they both meet like a horrifying end. And I'm like, yeah, and there's still like 10 more left, if not more. There might even be more, and I'm gonna have to see all of them die. And so I'm sure this show is gonna like devastate me, just from killing the dragons, if anything else.
Damn.
But besides that, it's gotten just overall, it's just way more engaging. It feels like closer to early Game of Thrones, and as long as they end it relatively soon, holds the same quality, I'm gonna be very, very happy with it. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's a show that I've watched like the Game of Thrones pilot a couple times, and it hasn't really stuck with me. I don't know why. I mean, I like Lord of the Rings. I like, some fantasy stuff, but I think like that sort of medieval style high fantasy is not 100%
like totally your bag. Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, if you haven't seen, I don't know, you can maybe still watch House of the Dragon if you didn't watch that show. But it is really hard to like, if you're not getting into it at this point, I can't say to watch it, but it's such a bummer because again, those first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, maybe 5, maybe even 5. A lot of people include 5. I think 1 through 4 though is some of the best TV, like from like a production scale, just from like all over. Like it's so good, but then it just takes such a shit in the second half. It's like if somebody's like asking me to start it, I'm like, probably not. Like you'll be disappointed in the end. It's just when you know that that's where it's leading to.
That's tough.
It's really hard to recommend it. And like technically, yeah, you could say, well, like, oh, well, House of the Dragons before that's where that's leading to too. But it's like, yeah, but I know that like this story with these characters will be wrapped up. So as long as this is good, I can enjoy this,
Right. Yeah, maybe this fall I'll give it another shot, because I know Chloe loves it. It's like, I mean, she loves fantasy and like Brandon Sanderson and like Terry Pratchett and all that stuff, and like
first 4 seasons are amazing. They're so good.
Yeah,
you could almost finish the 4th season and then be like, you could kind of, it's like it's not resolved, but it's like there's a lot of
it leaves on like a satisfying enough. Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've been watching another HBO property as well. One of my buddies has been trying to get me to watch Silicon Valley for a very long time. And basically I finished watching Smiling Friends, so I needed like another show to like come home from, like Ultimate on Fridays, to just like sit in front of the TV and like eat something and like watch something really quick. And so I was like, okay, well, I finished Smiling Friends, as that was like my go-to. I'll start Silicon Valley, and I'm almost done with the first season. Have you seen it? I think
yeah.
I
really no, that show's great. I really like it. But the last episode of the first season is so good. There's a really good like middle scene with a whiteboard. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah, because the episode that I just finished was like the startup TechCrunch episode, where like Ehrlich gets attacked by the guy that he's like, oh yeah, I may have had sex with his wife like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he like doesn't know if he remembers him or not. He like has that interaction where he sees him like on the floor, and the guy looks at him and kind of gives him like the finger guns, and he's like, is that like a hello gesture, or does that mean, are you going to shoot me later, like that kind of thing? But I think the casting in that show is so good. TJ Miller is great as Ehrlich. Guilfoyle is like one of my favorites. Kumail Nanjiani is great.
Yeah, they're all really good, really well casted.
The episode where Jared gets in like the smart car that reroutes
Yeah.
halfway through, and he ends up like in a storage container for like going across the ocean. There's like a great reveal when he looks out the window and he's on a floating barge.
Yeah.
And you just hear him like
yeah.
And then he gets to the warehouse and it's all just like automated robots. There's not a single human being in sight.
Mm-hmm.
The two like CEO tech guys also seem like two completely different like Tim Heidecker characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's
the
like
one guy in particular, the
Gregory something,
the bad,
who's just
the
like
bad one, the villain one, or whatever.
Oh, the guy that works at Hooli.
Yes.
So yeah, he's kind of like the tech bro startup Tim Heidecker, and then the other one is just like the sort of like very weird esoteric guy, who like these two guys like come to him with a problem, and he's like,
yeah, that's right.
Have you ever had Burger King? And then like go down to Burger King and get one of everything. And then like basically like these two guys' business is on fire, and he's just like, look at the sesame seeds on the buns of these burgers. Like, and of course he saves the day, but he's like the eccentric genius like startup tech founder guy. And I do love the angle of the show. Like it doesn't seem mean-spirited. Like again, it's not like I hate Silicon Valley, but it is a very good like sort of send up of tech culture and like tech startups, and just like basically like all these idiots trying to like make an app that does something that like you can do for yourself that you don't need an app for. Like I feel like there's like one conversation a character has with another that he's like, well, that isn't that just like GPS? And he's just like, no, but it's different. It does something else. And it's just like he's basically describing a very simple thing, and they're like, well, why don't you just do this? And he's like, no, like this is what the app is for, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really funny, and I think seasons are only like 10 episodes or so. They're 8 or 9,
fairly
10.
short. Yeah.
So like I could probably blow through this in like a couple weeks. But
oh yeah, for sure. And they're half hour, so yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the episode where they're trying to get like the Pied Piper logo, and so they basically commission this like graffiti artist to do it. And it's Kumail Nanjiani with his dick in the ass of the Statue of Liberty. And then he spray paints it on their garage door.
Yeah.
So people in the neighborhood walk by. And then like he's basically like, dude, this isn't appropriate. Like, no, it's because Ehrlich told the Mexican guy that Dinesh was also Mexican because he has like a darker complexion.
Yeah.
And so he made the logo like the Mexican struggle in the United States. And so then he changes it, and I think he makes Ehrlich the Statue of Liberty, and everyone's
that
just
sounds
like,
right, yeah.
Dude, is that you? He's like, no, it's not. Yeah, it's just it's very funny. Like the jokes per minute is great. Like it's very well written. I mean, it's Mike Judge. I love almost everything that I've seen that Mike Judge has put out.
Yeah.
It's also co-created and directed by Alec Berg, who did a lot of Barry.
That's what. Yeah, that's right.
I saw his name show up, and I was like, Alec Berg. I know that name. And he was like one of the executive producers of Barry.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And some of Seinfeld and Curb. Interesting.
That is a hell of a career.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew his name sounded familiar. I was kind of like looking at the Wikipedia page for the show because it's just been so long since I've watched it, so I'm just trying to refresh some of it. Yeah, the one thing I'd say is like, it is one where it's also like Succession in a different way, where like it kind of feels like each season after the first one, or like the first two maybe, it's kind of just like repeating itself, like repeating the same kind of like general plot thing. So but
yeah,
but the focus is the comedy, so it never bothered me too much. But I guess I would just say don't try to get too invested in the story itself, because like
it's like, we need to make this app. Uh-oh, we have this problem with the app. Uh-oh, we're not going to get funding. We have like basically like tech problems keep happening, and then they have to solve them. It's like putting out fires and etc.
Yeah, basically. So we're like, I don't actually even remember like how the show ends, but I know I've watched all of it.
Yeah.
But still, it's great. I really like that show a lot. Kind of a unsung one. And there's some great characters that show up in the later seasons too. Chris Diamantopoulos' character is like one of my favorites. His name is Russ Henneman or something like that. You know when he shows up. He's great.
Okay.
But yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's great so far. Really like it.
Okay, cool. Episode done. What do we got next week? We got another.
It's not 2 hours this time.
No, yeah. It's almost hit the goal this time. We have a guest for next week. You can.
Oh yeah. Returning for the first time or the second time. I think that's how that works.
Returning for the first time, but appearing.
This is
for the second time.
because appearing for the second time, returning for the first time, because Josh has returned several times.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Luke Ferris, sent me a DM on Instagram, requesting to come back on the show, which is always a welcome thing to hear, that someone had a good enough time to want to come back and do it again. And so he kind of gave me a list of different movies that he wanted to talk about. I know like the episode after this one is a dud episode, but I think he thought of this one in terms of like a dud. Okay. So we might have to like adjust our rating scale on it.
We'll see. Yeah, we can talk about it when we actually do the episode too. But also with how we're kind of doing it now, it's not like solidly at the end of the month. We can, if we want to just make this the dud one, and then we just do a normal one after,
Yeah.
Take it as it comes.
Yeah. But the movie that he wanted to bring in is the 13th Warrior, which is another Michael Crichton novel adaptation. We always like note when we have repeat directors.
Yeah.
We should start noting when we have repeat writers, because I feel like we've done a few Michael Crichton stories.
Didn't we just do one? Well, the other one he did, Timeline, was a Crichton one.
That was a Michael Crichton.
And then I thought we just did one, or maybe I just watched a Michael Crichton movie recently or something. That's.
I watched like Jurassic Park: The Last World, so that's like recent in my mind. I swear to God, I feel like we just did a Michael Crichton story. But anyway,
this is a returning director too.
Oh, is it? Who directed it?
John McTiernan. Who did?
Oh, the guy who did Die Hard. And what else? He did another thing that we watched.
Predator's his other big one, but another one we watched. I don't think so. I think we just did
Die Hard.
Die Hard. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Oh God, he did the 2002 Rollerball.
Hell yeah, I got that in the cup too. So.
In the Dud Cup?
Yeah. I think so. Sometimes I like to throw like bad movies in the normal cup just to kind of mix it up a little bit. So that one, I don't know. I'm not actually sure. I guess we'll see.
Because I know my dad loves the original Rollerball with James Caan.
Yeah,
that's like
one
of his favorite movies. Yeah, he loves that shit. So yeah, we're gonna do the 13th Warrior, directed by John McTiernan, written by Michael Crichton. Did you figure out the other Michael Crichton that we did?
It wasn't one that we did, but it's Twister, and by the by Twisters. So
That's what it was. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
that's what I'm thinking
Damn,
of.
Michael Crichton.
He's got his fingers in every pot.
He kind of does.
Yeah. Like Jurassic Park. Yeah, Twister.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, he's got Congo.
Yeah, because I think, I was gonna say that was Congo was like another one that Luke was suggesting. He was also gonna suggest Demolition Man.
Ooh. All good options.
So. Watch The 13th Warrior from 1999 if you don't want to get spoiled for it, but I'm gonna let you finish the rest of this.
Before the next episode, these episodes come out on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. EST on YouTube in video form, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts and more in audio form. We also have social pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. With all that said, I was transformed when I was 16, and that is why I always look 16. I'm TJ, and with me as always.
As always, if you are gonna eat a sandwich,
oh damn, that's
you would just enjoy it more if you knew that no one had fucked it. And I am Nick. That was a big laugh.
That's
that was
a good one. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Farewell.